Welcome to Raw Conscious Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Cheney. Here, I dive deep into extraordinary journeys, out-of-body experiences, near-death awakenings, encounters with the paranormal, the unseen, the unexplained, the deeply spiritual. You will hear from real people sharing raw, unfiltered stories. Settle in, get ready for a conversation that just might shift your consciousness. Today's guest, I have Michelle Ledbetter. Today, Michelle will be sharing her near-death experience caused by a horrific car accident, her amazing journey as a hospice nurse. Welcome, Michelle. So,
thank you, Tammy.
Yes. Do you mind starting out by just telling the guest a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a registered nurse of 30 years, and through the last 20, I've been working on and off with hospice. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, and I had the altered reality experience 6 years ago after this car accident that absolutely changed my life for the better. And I'm so grateful to be able to share it with you on this platform.
Wow, that's beautiful. So now, why don't you just go ahead and start right where the near-death experience happened with the car accident and just go from there.
Okay. I was, this was back in 2019, and I was actually traveling as a hospice nurse, and I was going from Montana to try and get to an assignment in Texas. And there was a snowstorm. I was trying to outrun it and did not do so well. When I was in Colorado, I ended up having a severe automobile accident where I went off an embankment, and when I came down, I had a broken spine, L1 burst fracture, and a significant closed head injury. So the very first recall that I have after recognizing that I might be in trouble on the road, it was just complete darkness after that. But the first thing that I remember is waking to the paramedics trying to get me from the car. And I had such a profound sense of peace. It's hard to articulate it. I was not totally with it, but I was with it enough to recognize that I'd had the accident and they were there to pick me up. I was traveling with my little dog, so I was mindful of her. And then it was, in and out. I don't remember being transported to the first hospital where they did some imaging. And in the imaging, they recognized that they needed to do urgent surgery because the wounds and the spine was unstable. And so they transferred me to a trauma unit. And again, during this whole time, I feel very peaceful, where you would otherwise think that I would have been so afraid. But I just felt very held. And the people that were actually working with me, they almost were angelic in their way of being. And I just felt so loved and supported. The paramedics that had originally taken me to the first hospital, when we got to the second hospital, they came with this little basket, and it had a little stuffed dog in it, because they were talking about impounding my dog. And I was, very sad about that. And a nurse came around the corner and said, "Don't worry about it. I've got you. We'll take care of your dog. I'll take her home with me, and she'll stay with me until you recover." So I just thought, there are angels here on earth. And
yes.
It's just so amazing. So I went into this, into my surgery with a really profound sense of peace, which I missed it. I missed it in the beginning as I was integrating this, because the part that came next was so hellish and fearful that it consumed my thoughts. But there was definitely a sense of peace. And I do remember the people just being so amazing. So the next thing I remember, I don't remember being put to sleep. The next thing I remember, I am for the best way I can describe it, is like a warehouse setting. There were not any walls, but it was I felt very contained. It was a very damp, dingy, I could not see any color. It was a black and white grayscale. And the first sense that I got was that my children, my two daughters, were behind me. And so I turned to them to invite them to continue coming through the door. And when they looked at me, there was this look in their eyes, like either you messed it up this is your journey. We're not doing this with you. They turned and walked out this really heavy door that had a small window. Although there were no walls, there was a door. And as they walked through the door and shut it, I went to the door to try and open it, and I couldn't get it open. And I peeked through the little window and I saw them going off into a barren land, like it had been wiped clean with like big equipment. And I started to panic, and fear just started to rise in me, and I became very confused, and I wasn't sure where I was. And the feeling in this experience was so overwhelming. Like, you have sad emotions or, fearful emotions, but they were compounded. They were so heavy and dense. And I turned back into the room, and there were a few different scenes, and I kind of get to the main scene that helped me transform. So, but there were some things that I was seeing that was very horrific. One was a man that I befriended. He was HIV positive, and he was laying in a bed, and he was being tortured, and I felt extremely helpless, and I was just so sad at the visions that I was seeing him go through. And I recognized that as I'm looking at him, and the fear is just compounding, getting bigger and bigger, and the confusion, I thought, where in the heck am I? I look over and I see a little boy and a little girl off in the distance. And as I kind of turn to focus on them, a review of a film essentially is the best way to describe it, where I was reviewing my childhood, my life. And my first 7 years of my life, my father raised me by himself. And then, so there was really very good memories. I was never exposed to any kind of religious belief or spiritual belief during the time with my father. He married a woman when I was 7, and she was Catholic. And so in the Catholic tradition, they have to do some stuff to, make sure that the man's not married, all that stuff. And so it started my journey into Catholicism. I ended up going to catechism and, doing all those things. But during that time, I was just very distorted in my what I was being taught in catechism. It was very scary to me that, we had a judgmental God, and that if I didn't obey those 10 commandments, I was going to hell. And so I believe that I came into this experience with that memory. As I moved into my adulthood, I was very spiritual, but I was absolutely not religious in any way, shape, or form, because my abusers were connected with the church. And so it just didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't go down that path. But I'm sorry, I kind of got away from what I was speaking about here. So I turn, and my childhood is being reviewed. And early in my childhood, during the same time, there was sexual abuse that was introduced by outside family. And my father, who I thought I didn't have any feeling of him not having it together, there was a side of him that I didn't see until he met my stepmother. And he was very physically abusive, very emotionally withdrawn, did not know how to express love. I don't believe he knew what love was himself. But so I'm moving through my actual trauma, the actual events of abuse in a very intense way. I am in my body as a child, remembering it. I'm observing it as an adult on the outside. And it just felt like the emotions were just so intense. And I was so afraid. And it seems like by the time I get to the end of this thing, where I just think I can't watch this anymore, I turned and looked to the little girl, and another review started, but I recognized it was not mine. And in this one, the abuse was so significant. Like, if you had to put a hierarchy on abuse, one being worse than the other, hers was actually worse than mine. And I was it felt like I was in my spirit body, but I was also in hers. So I am viewing it through her eyes. I'm viewing it from outside eyes, and I'm feeling her emotions. And the fear got even intensified, because at least in my review, I knew what was coming next. And hers, I had no idea. So I was taken by surprise on what I was seeing, and it was just heartbreaking. And again, as I get to a point where I think I can't watch this and see this anymore, I turn and look at the little boy, and the same thing. Life review starts with the child who is just neglected, abused, made fun of. And I'm feeling the sadness and the heaviness and the anger and the confusion from him, looking like I'm looking through his eyes, and I'm feeling it in myself. And I was so afraid of what I was seeing. And again, I didn't know a sequencing of events, so things were catching me by surprise. And I was so consumed with fear. I got to that point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And I started to feel a warmth at my feet, and it started to rise up my body. And as it did, it kind of forced me to look up. And as I looked up, it was like the ceiling started to crack. And in the cracking, there was a very bright, brilliant light. And that was the first time there was actually color. There was color to this light. And it's not a color or light that I've seen anywhere else except there, but I can only explain it. Maybe it was like silver, gold, yellow, orange, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So in my state of fear, the tiles started to lift and it started to pour in, and I was so afraid of this light. I thought it was lava and I was going to be burned by fire, that I was truly in hell. And
Wow.
so I bent over to brace. And when I bent over, the next thing I know is I feel this excruciating pain in my back, and I wake and I'm in the hospital bed. But this is still like, I'm just like, I was here coming out of this, and now I'm in such pain, and I'm in the hospital bed. And I look over in the corner and I see an African American lady sitting there. And I was, who are you? And she tells me that she's there to keep me safe. And I was like, great, we got to get out of here. Like, we got to get going. And then it was kind of in and out again. She blended into my Caucasian sister that I didn't know very well. She was a daughter of my birth mother. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's family. So she's going to help me. And I'm just asking her, please help me. And so what was happening, I found out later, is I was moving through this altered reality that I was in. I was actually acting it out. And so I had just had surgery now. I had 2 rods in my back, and I had been cemented and wired back together. And I had this crazy traumatic brain injury, and I was getting out of there. So they had to have physical people keep me safe, because they don't use sedation. They reserve sedation because with a closed head injury, they want to make sure that your neuro components are coming back. So they had to have a physical person in there instead of using drugs to keep me safe. And slowly I started to come around. And when I realized that, where I was and what was happening, and I had this on the heels of this hell that I just went to, I was in the mindset of, I am not telling a soul. I don't want anybody to think that I'm a bad person and I went to hell. And so going home, I went through, recovery was horrendous. And anytime that would pop up in my mind, I would drink. I got addicted to my pain medication, and I was very good at numbing. As a child, you want to suppress those emotions. And so I learned at a very young age how to do that. And I picked it up big time after the accident, and essentially continued this hellish experience, self-induced, for 2 years. When I came home, I did not have a job. I did not have any money. And I was in between, I hadn't quite made 3 months on my travel assignment. So I had no insurance. I had lost everything. So I was just completely broke. And my best friend was dying of cancer. And it was just a heavy, dense, icky time. The beautiful thing that did come from that is my best friend at the time was at end of life. He was on hospice, and he was given 3 days to live because he had a GI bleed from a colon cancer that he had that they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. They had sent him to the hospice house to pass. They pumped him up with blood and said, you have about 3 days worth of fuel there. And I was just sharing with him, that's, as a hospice nurse, I know that bleeding out is not a bad way to go. You just kind of get sleepy and then you're gone. So I was trying to be encouraging, and I was like, this is a great way to go. And he ended up being transported. When he was transported to the hospice house, apparently he had this miracle. And so he calls me like that afternoon, and he's like, I had a miracle. My bleeding has stopped, and I want you to come get me and bring me home. I was like, no way. Like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. As a nurse, I'm like thinking they had you there for over 12 weeks and they couldn't find it. I'm sure that it didn't stop. Well, I'll be darned. I got him home, and he was with me for about another 14 to 16 months. So even though I was going through a really challenging time, he was on borrowed time. And so each day we would get up and we would dedicate about an hour to a bitch session about everything that was wrong in the world and the family and all the dynamics, right? But that was it. And then we would start living life. And so he really was so instrumental in helping me learn how to live life to the fullest. And it also started to introduce me to the spiritual side, because he was very religious and believed that he was, in the whole kind of Catholic upbringing, which I didn't, which was an interesting mesh, but I don't believe there's any mistake in the fact that we were so tight. He started to open my mind to a different way of seeing things, seeing God. And although I was not still willing to go down the traditional route of seeing it, he was open to other things too. So he just really was that segue for helping me kind of look in that direction. Because before that, there was no way I was going to be looking at the Bible or any religious teaching, because I just thought that's witchcraft. I mean, in my mind, that's what I had said. It's distorted. It doesn't work. And I still believe that religion can be so detrimental. There are good, wonderful things in the sacred books, and I just think they've been taken out of context, but absolutely believe in the higher power and the divine beings that have been here to teach us how to live life and enjoy what we're here doing in this earth school. So after he passed away, I was just still in that drinking and taking pill mode, although it was starting to slow down, and I realized I needed help. And so I decided I was going to try meditation. I had no idea what that was, but I just sat down and I got quiet and was laying on my couch. And I was essentially praying and asking life to help. I needed help, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I had struggled with addiction on and off from the time I was in my early teens. I had been in and out of the rooms, and it was just always something that was a little bit bigger than me. I could never quite get my hands around it. I was very functioning, but it was still, right. It had a grip on me. And so I was in a meditation one day, and I am prompted by a voice in my, not from my thinking mind, but a voice that said to ask myself, how can you see the situation differently, and what is it trying to teach me? And it was like I was pulled back into the scenes of what I had been through, but this time it was so much more gentle. It was like I was being held and guided back to that place. So it wasn't as horrific as it was the first time, and it allowed me to stay with it. And in that meditation, I was told by this voice that the children that I had witnessed their horrific abuse were actually my abusers as children. Sorry, it always gets me.
It's okay.
Because I had such a compassion, being through it myself. And Tammy, something just came over me. It was an unconditional love that I never knew. And I'm 53. And it rose within me. And the only thing I could do was just extend it to them. And when I did that, there was like this something lifted that I did not even know was holding me down. It was like the gravity just got lighter. And it was a pivotal point of me truly releasing my abusers and understanding at the core level of why they who they were because of what they went through. And recognizing that I too had done stuff to hurt other people, not in that fashion, not abusive, but
Right.
I was in a marriage for 8 years. I came out of that in an affair. That hurt a lot of people. And so I recognized that we really weren't very different. It's just a different, a different story, but I didn't know exactly what the story was, right? I didn't know what was causing me to act in such a way. It was after, and I carried on with it for a long time. I divorced and at that point I was just kind of like searching like there's got to be more than this. And I always kind of felt like there was a hole in my love cup. But that unconditional love that rose in me filled that cup up and slapped some cement on the bottom because it has not come back out. It was, I didn't even know what that was. I had no idea what true love is. And for me, it's appreciating everybody's place in my life, even the villains, because they helped me to become who I am today. I don't think I would know this way of being if I hadn't been exposed to the darkest of dark. And a lot of people, I'm still learning. So I just came out with this in October. Because I was very afraid to share it. So I went 6 years without saying anything, but integrating it. And I'm still learning about how all of this works and how other people have experienced these sorts of things. And it's really been a beautiful, beautiful journey. And there seems to be a common theme, whether it's a distressing altered reality experience, NDE, or the beautiful, rainbows and big flake flowers. And, it seems like we all kind of come back to this knowing that love is where it's at. As I was integrating all of the things that were coming up, right? Because you suppress those things. You want to just get on with life and be normal. And, oh yeah, it happened. I'm over it. I forgive them. But this opened up a whole new door to all of it. So I started to get these, for lack of a better word, downloads during meditation where things became very clear to me. I could see, not only was I able to extend this unconditional love to my abusers, but I was actually able to extend it to myself. And that was even more powerful than forgiving them. When I recognized that in my heart, I am divinely connected to the source that created me, right? I'm like a fractal, and we all are. We're just like the rays of the sun that are here doing this journey, being exposed to the contrasts. So, ultimately, I believe with my hospice experience, the only thing that we take back with us is the light and love that we came to this world with.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's kind of my unfolding and my story.
Wow, that was just, again, I've heard your interview before, and like, it is just such a powerful message.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love how you went through the life of your abusers. That's who the girl and the boy were. And you could see what they had went through themselves. I went through something similar because I also grew up in a very horrific abuse childhood, like horrific. And I was able to, I think through it all, with everything that I went through, the one person that I was most upset with was my mom, because she didn't ever save me, and she allowed it. She participated, and it was just, I don't know why I was most upset with her, but I also went through a 3-day experience where I was able to see, it was like a life review, I guess, of my mom. And I was able to see and feel everything that she was experiencing through before I was born, while she was pregnant for me, and then after she gave birth. And it really did just completely change my mindset. And I did find myself like 4 or 5 years later falling back into that mentality, only because I was talking about my abuse for the first time in my entire life. It was something that I just carried and lived with all day, every day. And I'm so thankful now that I have completely been set free and delivered of all of my trauma from my childhood. I no longer have to walk and live as if I'm still that little girl that was being abused. And it's so wonderful. It really is. It's so wonderful. It is so freeing, because when I
Great.
came to the understanding that who I am now is not who I was then, and that I no longer need to carry that, because it actually doesn't even exist anymore. It's gone. The past is gone. And I came to that understanding. It was so incredibly freeing that I no longer had to live every day, all day, with that in my life. And so I've went through, just in the last 3 years, I've went through a tremendous healing journey, where I was actually, even though I had that experience with my mom, and that 3-day experience that was 8 years ago, like I said, I fell back into the pattern of feeling that anger and hatred, like, towards my mom. And I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not an angry person. I'm not hateful. I love all people. I have zero judgment to anybody. But for some reason, I couldn't have that for my mom. And so when I went through this healing journey the last 3 years, and I was absolutely set free, like, it has been so life-changing for me. Like, I can finally now be who I am, who I truly am, and freely be who I truly am. And I'm just so thankful and grateful. And so that was one of the something that touched me so incredibly hard, when I saw that you went through basically a similar experience, where you got to see and feel what they went through. And so that was just incredibly powerful for me. I can't even, there really is not the words to even express how powerful that was for me personally. And I know it's going to touch many, many, many people worldwide. That was one of the most powerful parts of your near-death experience. So now I am so intrigued by your profession as being a hospice nurse, because for me, I have a really hard time. When I was a child, I was in the 4th grade. My grandpa had passed away, and they had one of those things where you go see the body in this
A viewing.
funeral place or whatever.
Yeah.
I grew up my whole life until the 4th grade, basically, with my grandma and grandpa, like, very actively in my life. And although my grandpa was like a really grouchy old man, I still loved him anyways, and I loved being around him, and I couldn't wait to see my grandma and my grandpa every single time I saw them. And but when I went to that thing where they show the body, I walked up to it I got to about 5 feet in, and I knew instantly that was not my grandpa. I was so upset, because I thought I was going to get to see my grandpa, even if he is whatever that word dead means, because I didn't understand what that meant. I walked up and got about 5 feet in, and I was terrified, because whatever that wasn't my grandpa, and it was empty. That's the only way I can describe it. I knew that my grandpa wasn't in that anymore, whatever that is. And I was terrified, and it actually traumatized me. I'm going to be honest with you. It traumatized me that I could sense and feel that meat suit, basically, was an empty vessel. And that felt so, the feeling of that emptiness of him not being there anymore just was incredibly traumatizing for me. And my grandma was my favorite person in the world, but I had visitations from my grandpa only when he passed away. When my grandma passed away, I'm assuming she must have just reincarnated back into another vessel like instantly or something, because I've never had a visitation from her before. And but my grandpa, I had many visitations from my grandpa, and in every visitation I was like saving him. Like it was like I had to keep over and over again like saving him. And so being a hospice nurse, you're obviously there literally to the day that they pass away, correct? Once they pass over.
Correct.
And so I'm very intrigued with the experience of how that feels. Do you feel that emptiness of that vessel once they leave? And, you know, what is your experience when you do go through an experience?
Yeah. So before my experience, before that whole thing happened, I still, even though I was working in hospice, I wasn't necessarily afraid of death, but there was still some unknown stuff, right? And so the experience really showed me some things that made sense to me. At end of life, there are some people will go through what we call terminal agitation, and I'll talk about that. And the other thing that they will do is called visioning, and sometimes those two get confused. So let me try and explain the differences between the two. In terminal agitation, what you see is somebody that looked just like me in ICU. They're trying to make that transition, but I truly believe that because they haven't worked their stuff and all those false limiting beliefs that they took on to protect them, right? And originally as a child, we take on these things where we become super, as far as, abuse, we are very hyper focused on everyone in the room. We're constantly looking to see if somebody's going to jack us up. And then we walk away. I walked away, and I'm sure I can so relate to you as far as my stepmom was the last person I could free too. It's interesting that happens that way. But from our childhood, we have these glasses that essentially put a distortion on the reality that we're living in based on what we went through. And those false limiting beliefs are, I'm not good enough. I'm not safe. The world, we're separate. I must be something wrong with me, or this wouldn't have happened. All those things that we put in front of us start to dim that light that we come into this world with, right? That bright, brilliant light, the fractal of God that's still in that newborn. We start to become conditioned based on what happens. So people carry really dense energy in this realm where we're exposed to contrast. And I believe that you do not go back to the light and love of God with anything except for the light and the love that you came in with. Like, that's all that you're taking back. So that I believe that junk that people, I was telling you, I thought that thing was lava. In a meditation, it was revealed to me it was the love and the light of God that was trying to come in and shine some light on these wounds that were coming up, my abusers, and we're all in hell together, bringing that up so that I could look at it from a different perspective. But back then I was so afraid of light, God, and like all of that, right? But I was like, oh, that makes sense. I believe the same thing is happening in terminal agitation. People's junk that is just false limiting beliefs that they pick up tries to come up, right? It tries to come up, and because it's scary, you're having to redo, you're looking at you don't know what's happening. You have that fear going on, and people can see it. So I love that I can share this, because what I can say is I can promise you it's coming up to be released. It's being brought up so that the light of love can shine on it and you can actually see it for what it is. And take the story that you have around being a victim to anything is released. And so in that releasing, there is a divine, this is hard to explain. It's very experiential, but when you're in the space of somebody that is transitioning, after the terminal agitation piece, there is always a pause of days, hours, whatever, where there is just peace. And as the soul begins to depart the body, that energy is as beautiful as birthing into the physical realm. We're birthing into the non-physical realm. And
Wow.
if you can stand in it and be with it, it is divine. It is sacred. It is, you can't make it up. Like the energy that I've seen energy leave twice. It's just so sacred. But we do a really bad job of talking about death and dying in our culture. And like you, so many people are very afraid, right? And they haven't been taught that it's a rebirth. And a lot of my religious teachings just made death the worst thing ever. Like, that's the worst thing ever. It's actually not. It's actually, it's the freedom that comes, like, once you release the suit and you return back to that energy of love and light, that's eternal. And, you know, they say that nothing can be created or destroyed. It only changes form. And that's exactly what's happening at the end of life. We're just changing from physical to non-physical, you know? So
What a
it's actually
powerful message. Oh my gosh. I wonder if you hear yourself and how powerful your message is, because you are blowing my mind right now. Because I don't necessarily believe in death, because I know and have always known since a small child that we go back to I call it the other side. And so and the thing is because I experienced everything that I experienced starting at the age of 3, I started going to church when I didn't grow up in a religious home or grow up in the church, although we went a few times on a church bus where they'd come and bring us to Sunday school. But I was so young that I had no clue what was going on, nor did I hear anything. I was so ADHD as a child that I was just like all over the place and didn't capture anything that they were talking about. I just wanted the candy and the juice that they were giving us, and you know, and I wasn't worried about anything else. And so I started going to church, just a regular Christian church, non-denominational, at 24 years old, because I thought that's where I was going to find people like me, which I was sadly mistaken, because I did not ever find one person like me. And then I got to a place where I thought, well, maybe I could just save all these people, you know, but they did for a time, and I'm not kidding, they did for a time convince me that if we don't, as Christians, try to save every person we can possibly in the world, they're going to burn eternally in this hell that never ends. So I was a maniac. I'm not kidding. I was a maniac. I could not even fathom the thought that I don't care what you've ever done in your life, how heinous and evil you may have been in this lifetime, nobody deserves to burn eternally in this hell place that they describe. So I was on a mission, like one person at a time. I needed to save the whole entire world. Somehow, some way, I needed to save them from this hellfire. But then I got to a place, like I said, 3 years ago, where I started going through my healing journey. And part of my healing journey was to read the Bible myself and not allow a church or facility to tell me what that book says. And thankfully, one of the amazing gifts of being autistic and having ADHD is you think in a very higher minded thinking. and you don't think on surface levels. Your brain is just so like not ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It is like very deep minded. And so I began to read the Bible, and I immediately, I mean, the first thing that I thought of when I saw the Old Testament was, oh my gosh, like whoever this God is definitely not the same God in the New Testament. And this is like filled with nothing but war and death and murder and pedophilia, you know, men selling their daughters for their debts for whoever's buying them to do whatever they please. And you know, it was just, I couldn't believe what I was reading. And I'm thinking in my head as I'm going through all this, I'm like, does anybody actually like pay attention to what they're actually reading here? You know, and then I made it to the New Testament, and I realized that I've always had a relationship with Jesus, but not a relationship like what the Bible talks about. I knew Jesus as a little girl, and he was my best friend through my trauma, you know? And so I started reading, you know, and when I say reading, like I literally read the Bible. I took 9 months where I was just completely gone from the world. So I had my kids all around me, and I was robotically doing dishes. I was robotically cooking dinner, but I was not present at all for a solid 9 months. And I read that book from front to back, from back to front, and then side by side by side through like the Gospels. Like I spent 9 solid months from the time I woke up until I passed out at night. And if I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was back in there because I could not stop. And that's another thing with autism and ADHD. You get hooked on something and you absolutely cannot accomplish anything else pretty much except for that until you're done, until your brain says, okay, I'm done. I've got all the information that I need. And I realized that there was, in the New Testament, especially in the Gospels, there were so many contradictions. You got Jesus telling you to love your neighbor, love your enemy, love, love, love. And then you got 3 scriptures ahead saying anybody who does not hate their mother, father, brother, sister, wife, husband, dog, home, whatever, for Jesus's name's sake is not worthy of the kingdom. I'm like, wait a minute. Like that can't be something that came from Jesus, because it just does not match his love, his message of love. And so I began to see all the holes in it. And throughout my whole time in the church, thankfully, I guess it was protection over me. All I saw before I read the whole Bible myself was the message of love, and to you know, feed the homeless and take care of the widows. And, you know, that was the love message, was the only message I saw. And so when I read the whole book, I was like, wait a minute, just something isn't right here. It was just so much contradiction. And then I just started taking courses on the history of the Bible, where, when, how. I don't know if you know who Dr. Bart Ehrman is, but he is one of the top Bible scholars in the world. And I took a course where he went through the whole Bible and taught, you know, when, where, and how it was made. And my life, literally, the shackles that were on me from being in the church and part of the church completely fell off of me. And I felt free for the first time in my entire life. It was life-changing. So, so when your message, I cannot even tell you how powerful it is personally for me to hear your story, to hear your freedom, to hear these words that you speak, because it is truly life-changing. It's so confirming for me. I was like, oh my gosh, he's got similar messages to me, you know, because you do. when you switch over and you are walking your true self, your true nature, you question your sanity. You question. And then
Yes.
when you see these stories of these people that have experienced similar to the same exact experience as you're like, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm not crazy, And
Right.
so
It's a validation.
it's just validation. And I'm really so grateful and thankful for you coming on the channel. I'm so grateful and thankful that your experience is going to be spread to my audience and whoever from my audience and beyond. And my whole role and goal here is just like when I was in the church, I got to reach as many people as possible. Well, it's changed now
Yeah.
because I have to reach as many people as possible for that which is the truth, that which sets you
Yeah.
free of the shackles and brings freedom
Yeah.
and love and light to your life. Because that's truly what's going to change this world. I've honestly put my foot down to world suffering, and I'm stepping and have stepped up on board to for world change, because this world does need to change. It doesn't operate properly. And there's people
Right.
by the millions, and you're part of it because your story is so life-changing. You're part of it. Your story, your experience is part of it. It is life-changing, and it sets people free in their mentality to know the truth, because this is the truth.
Yeah.
Your truth is the truth. My truth is the truth. Everyone's truth is the truth if it sets you free.
Right.
And is
If it sets you sets you free. That is such a key thing.
Yes.
I agree. I've started reading a little bit of the Bible too. But only the words in red.
Yes.
Only the words in red really been studying. And that you're right. There's so much discord and stuff that doesn't work when you look at just what Jesus was saying, and his message was all about
Yes.
love and forgiveness and seeing beyond people's boo-boos, like when people are behaving poorly, they are divine extensions, fractals of that created them. God, whatever people want to call that, life force energy that breathes through all of us, that blooms a flower, that grows a tree. That is the oneness of all of us. We are an extension of that. We can't not be. So in the religious upbringing, in my experience, it was outside of me. And then there was even a third party that I had. And so I never knew. And I think a lot of people never know that the divine is within. And I believe Jesus was trying to tell us that. He was saying he is the Son of God, but so are you. And he showed us how we can turn away from the conditioning of the BS and actually shine our light. So the fact that you have this platform, people can shine their light, that what's happening now, I think, is actually divine. It's really hard and it's bumpy. What I've noticed in my interviews is that some of the people that give me the hardest criticism are the Christians. And I was meditating about that. And what I recognize, because my goal too in sharing this was just if I can help one person, and thank you so much for that acknowledgement. And I know there's more, and so I continue to share. But it believe me, it was not easy. I wasn't going to tell nobody nothing, because there's a whole bunch of shame and darkness, all of it. It's kind of hard to look at your own stuff. But the fact that people get disturbed when they hear something that is not their core belief, it fractures their foundation. And so when it fractures that foundation, they feel fear. And so they project it out. And so they will criticize, or they will say, you've got to do it this way. And if you don't, you're damned to hell. You think you went to it they'll that's the energy they bring. That energy of fear is within them. And it has to come out. So, when you see people that are super aggressive or angry, or it's nothing about you when you encounter that, although we take it on because it will mirror something for us and trigger our wounds. But when you get to this place, you can actually look at someone. I can look at all this feedback that's coming in from the Christian population and recognize that's fear. That is totally fear, because what I am doing is I'm taking their hardcore belief of this is how it is, and I'm cracking it just a little bit. But what I know is when you crack something, the light can get in. So I am not here to change anybody, convert them to anything, get them to believe like I believe. I just want people to know that the access is within. Stop looking out there for validation. Stop looking for all the things outside that you think are going to fill you, because they never will. It's fleeting. Believe me, I tried everything to fill the love cup. I tried everything. It will come, but it will go. When you tap into the divinity you are, the social masks come off. You're not afraid to be authentic, because you're no longer worried about what somebody else thinks about you, because you know in your heart and soul who you are and what your intention is. So there is freedom, even more freedom, right? It's just more and more freedom comes when you recognize, and in the Christian tradition, it's very blasphemous to say that you are an extension of God. That is like taboo. Like, who are you to say that? But if you think about it, how could we not be connected to that which created us? And then when you speak about this evil, judgmental, cast his children into hell, like, there's no human being that I know of that's not totally twisted and broken that would ever want their child to burn in hell for a mistake that they made. And so, like, of course, we're going to make mistakes when we're not in alignment with the divine. Of course, we're going to see things skewed through our broken lenses until the lenses come off and you can see people for who they are beyond their boo-boos. You don't have to take their stuff personal. And it just sets you free. It puts you in the powerhouse. Like it just like, who knew? I had no idea. And the fact that you have gone through this without a near-death experience or super, trauma, bleeding and all that stuff, the fact that you accessed it, it's available to everyone. But it has been so conditioned, feared out of us, that people are so afraid to look within. They're so afraid to go against what they've been taught. And if you think about, wait, you learned that from somebody who learned that from somebody who learned that from somebody, like, where is the truth in it? And when you start to see the mismatch in the scriptures that don't match what the words in red say, and people are acting they're not, if we could all just do what is in red, man, can you imagine? But we twist all this stuff and justify why we need to do whatever, and why we have big golden churches that cost millions and we got hungry people on the street. It's distorted. It doesn't make sense. So, but this makes sense. It's like, of course, this makes sense. And if you think, somebody shared with me that, if you looking at God as being love and light, the creator of all that is, like, you're staying in that space all the time. Like, how do you get to kind of know who you are, right? Without contrast. So my philosophy is that we are God in human form, an essence, a fractal. And the way that God gets to experience the love that he is ultimately is through us and our life. And he is breathing and living life through each and every one of us. The only thing that goes back for anybody, including the Hitler, I'm sure he had some really bad terminal agitation. I'm sure there was some stuff there. But the only thing that goes back is that you just expand back into the love and the light that you have always been. It's eternal.
Yes.
And you can, my friend Brett passed away, but I now energetically, I feel his presence. There will be signs that come that you can't deny that there is something so much greater. I don't have all the answers, but I know there's way more than what we've been taught, and it is divine. It is within, and it's within each and every one of us. So you shining your light on this platform and allowing other people to shine their light.
Yeah.
People are, that whole, the global consciousness is going through fracture right now. Things are being undone and being exposed. But in the fracturing, there's a lot of people running in fear right now, getting all their ingredients together to go into the apocalypse. But in this is the pivotal point. And it's like, which side of the coin are you going to settle into? Because there's really only two emotions, and all other emotions extend around it: love and fear. And if you are holding fear in any way, shape, or form, I don't know that you'll actually see the evolution of what comes next because it's not in your wheelhouse, right?
Yes,
It
it's a
wasn't in my
prison.
wheelhouse.
It literally is a
It is a
prison when you're walking and living in fear. It literally is a prison.
yeah. Yeah. And like I had a download about emotions, and the emotions are God-given internal guidance to say we're not in alignment. When we feel dense, heavy emotion, sadness, fear, anger, jealousy, whatever, it makes you feel icky. You can physically feel it in your body, in your physical body. That is just God saying, you got the wrong pair of glasses on. You're looking at this through the wounded glasses. Take them off and look at it through Christ-like eyes. Look at it through love. The person that you're cussing up and down is just broken. Just broken. And the more that you retaliate against, you're just adding to the problem. You're not part of the solution. So
Right.
you really have to get honest. It's like, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? And the light is always the solution. So thank you for holding it and carrying it.
Yes. And thank you as well. And I just want to openly admit, I was one of those Christians that would beat it down people's throats continuously. And it really was
Right.
literally the fear inside me of thinking this person, oh my gosh, is going to go to hell if I don't say the perfect and right word right now and he dies tomorrow. That's it. He's burning, or she is burning in hell. So I was literally a maniac. I took everything that church was saying word for word, and it emotionally took control of me. And I was literally a maniac. I lost all my friends. I mean, I didn't have many, but anybody that I spoke to that was maybe even an acquaintance, none of them wanted to have anything to do with me. So it was.
Oh no, hold on a second. My battery's gonna go. Hold on. Oh no, I can't believe it. We're coming to an end, but doggone it. Hold on.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're back on. Sorry.
Okay.
It was getting
So
done.
yeah, so I was fully and completely one of those people that just literally beat it down people's throats because I was so scared to death they were going to burn in hell. And it really truly was so freeing when I left Christianity and just allowed the truth, to be the truth. And so
Right.
let's.
What is that? The truth will set you free.
Yes,
Wow,
Jesus,
so
yes, the truth will set you free. And Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Greater things you've seen the things that I have done, greater things you will do. And so we're in that time. We're in the Christ consciousness is here. When he spoke about returning, he didn't mean in the physical, he meant spiritually. That spirit is going to eventually come back and take over. And it has just, I'm so mind blown just from the last 10 years because I've watched everything that's happening now start to unfold year after year after year to where it is now, because I've been on the road for 10 years. I didn't have nothing else distracting me where I was able to focus on all of this. And so it's been powerful, but let's go ahead and wrap up. And
Okay.
this was an unbelievably.
It really is. I just want to say one quick thing.
Yes.
It really is about remembering who you are and then moving out of the ego head mind where we want to protect and analyze and all that and into the heart and just living life through that heart space instead of head space. And thank you for mirroring that for everyone.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and do the closing. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Your words of encouragement mean a lot, not just to me, but especially to the guests who come on and share their deeply personal experiences. These are real people, and they do read your comments. The best way to support the channel is to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, Stay curious and stay conscious.
Good stuff.